The galaxy had seen countless wars, but none began with something so small or so human. It started in the quiet dawn of a distant colony, a place where laughter of children once filled the air. No one noticed the shadow at first. No one saw the Imperial dropships until it was too late. The Galactic Empire, proud and cruel, had descended not to conquer cities or destroy fleets, but to take what no army should ever touch, the children of humanity. They came without warning, silver ships tearing through the blue skies. Families ran, soldiers fought, but the Empire's machines were merciless. In a matter of hours, every child from the colony was gone, taken aboard massive carriers bound for the Empire's core worlds. No one knew why. No ransom, no message, just silence and the sound of grieving parents staring into the stars, powerless and broken. But humanity was never known for silence. Within days, distress signals echoed across the colonies. What started as mourning became fury. The Terran Confederation, still rebuilding from the last war, gathered its fleets once more. Admirals who had sworn never to fight again rose from retirement. Scientists burned through nights designing weapons that could pierce Imperial armor. Across the stars, humans prepared to do the impossible, not to defend, but to retrieve what was stolen. In the halls of the Galactic Senate, the Empire's leaders dismissed it all. "They are primitives," one senator scoffed. "They will grieve and forget." But deep within the Empire's own ranks, unease began to spread. Reports came of human ships moving faster than predicted, of colonies uniting under one banner, of soldiers whispering that the humans were no longer fighting for land or pride. They were fighting for their children, and that, the veterans murmured, made them unstoppable. Among the enslaved children aboard the Imperial vessels, whispers of hope began to stir. Some had seen the stars flicker with flashes of light, human warships breaching the edge of Imperial space. The guards told them it was impossible, that humans would never make it this far. But the children knew their people. They remembered the way their parents' voices sounded when they spoke of home, the way humanity never stopped fighting, even when all odds were against them. And somewhere in the void between stars, a single fleet moved in silence. Its hulls bore no insignias, its engines ran cold to avoid detection. It wasn't a grand armada, just a handful of ships carrying soldiers who had lost everything. They didn't come for glory. They came with one purpose, one mission, to bring their children home. The Empire laughed at first. Then its outer colonies began to burn. The humans came like a storm of fire and vengeance, cutting through defenses that had stood for centuries. The galaxy watched in disbelief as the smallest of species struck terror into the most powerful empire it had ever known. No one could have guessed that the abduction of a few human children would ignite the war that made the galaxy scream. And as the first Imperial world fell silent under human fire, one message echoed across every channel. They're coming for their own. Before the war, humanity had been scattered across hundreds of worlds. Farmers, traders, engineers, dreamers. They weren't a military power anymore. After decades of peace, most believed the age of great battles was over. But when the Empire took the children, something ancient awoke inside the human spirit, something the galaxy had long forgotten. Old grudges between colonies vanished overnight. Rival factions merged their fleets. Every shipyard lit up, every pilot returned to the skies. Humanity remembered who they were and what they could become when pushed too far. The Empire didn't understand it at first. To them, humans were just another young species, one of many struggling to survive in the outer systems. They didn't see the fire that lived beneath human skin, the stubborn will that refused to die. They didn't know that the people they had wronged carried memories of loss across generations, and that nothing unites humanity faster than injustice. In the command center of the Terran Confederation, the War Council gathered under the pale light of holographic stars. Reports from scouts played in grim silence. Imperial warships had already begun to tighten their grip. cutting off trade routes and blocking communications. But human intelligence networks were fast, born from centuries of adaptation and survival. Through fragments of intercepted transmissions, they began to piece together the truth. The children were not taken for ransom nor for labor. They were subjects of something far more dangerous, an imperial experiment. The Empire had been trying to understand what made humans so unpredictable, so resistant to control. They wanted to extract it, contain it, perhaps even replicate it. The very thing that defined humanity, their defiance, had become the Empire's obsession. Across the human colonies, emotions burned like wildfire. News broadcasts showed parents holding holograms of their missing children, voices trembling but unbroken. Young pilots volunteered by the thousands, ready to join missions that might never return. Engineers worked in silence, welding armor plates and recalibrating ancient weapons. There was fear, yes, but under it all was something stronger, resolve, the kind that no empire could measure or understand. Meanwhile, inside the Empire's massive research vessel drifting near the galactic core, the stolen children began to notice cracks in their captors' confidence. Guards whispered of human fleets breaching sectors once thought unreachable. Commanders barked orders in panic. Through the walls, the children could hear distant rumbles, the unmistakable echo of explosions. Hope was coming, and they could feel it. In the outer rim, human strike groups operated like ghosts. They moved in the dark, striking Imperial convoys, freeing captured civilians, and vanishing before retaliation. To the galaxy's observers, it was madness, a desperate people facing an empire millions of times their size. But to humanity, it was personal. Each battle, each strike, carried the same unspoken message. You took our children, now we're coming for you. The Empire began to realize that this was no ordinary rebellion. Their fleets were powerful, their armies vast, but they were fighting something they couldn't see, a spirit that didn't break, a unity born from pain and love. What began as an act of control was turning into a war for survival. And somewhere deep within the Empire's core systems, a human fleet prepared to cross the final threshold. Their destination was the heart of Imperial space. Their mission was simple: bring their children home. But what awaited them there was beyond anything they could imagine. The Empire's secret project was nearing completion, and its outcome could either save humanity or end it forever. The first major clash came in the cold void near the Sirius Expanse. A fleet of human ships, small and unevenly built, faced an Imperial patrol that outgunned them 10-1. No one expected them to win, but they didn't need to. They only needed to survive long enough to draw attention away from a covert transport carrying data stolen from the Empire's labs. The battle was brutal and silent, flashes of light cutting through the dark as ships vanished in bursts of flame. When the last human ship fell quiet, the Imperials believed they had crushed the rebellion's heart. They didn't realize the data had already reached the Confederation, and with it, the truth about the Empire's real plan. Hidden inside the files were fragments of an ancient experiment. The Empire had been studying human neural patterns for years, convinced that humanity possessed a rare trait, an ability to resist psychic influence that most species in the galaxy couldn't. To the Empire, it was a threat. If they couldn't control humans, they would dismantle the very essence of what made them. The children were the key. Their minds were still forming, and the Empire believed it could rewrite them, remove defiance itself. Back on Terra Prime, the Human Council struggled with the weight of that knowledge. Some argued for negotiation, anything to bring the children back alive. Others, hardened by loss, demanded retaliation. The room grew tense as military officers and civilians clashed in heated debate. But one voice cut through the noise, quiet yet firm. They took our future. There can be no peace until it's returned. Those words spread across every human world, replayed on screens and whispered in the dark. The war had shifted. It wasn't just rescue anymore, it was resistance against extinction of spirit. In the outer colonies, another story unfolded. Engineers working in secret had begun developing new ships built from salvaged Imperial tech. They called them Ashwings, designed to disappear from sensors, to strike and fade like ghosts. Pilots trained in silence, guided by the knowledge that their every mission carried the weight of the missing children. Many had family among them. They fought not for orders, but for faces they remembered. Meanwhile, within the Empire's capital, unease grew. Not all Imperials agreed with what was happening. A few scientists had begun to question the morality of the experiments. One, a young researcher assigned to monitor the human children, started sending encrypted messages out of the core. The scientists didn't know if anyone would ever receive them, but still tried. Each message carried coordinates, coded warnings, and quiet hope that somewhere out there, humanity was listening. And they were. Deep in the black of uncharted space, human intelligence intercepted the first of those signals. The coordinates pointed to a planet near the galactic core, heavily fortified, unmarked on any star map. Commanders gathered around the data with grim faces. If the source was right, that world was where the children were being held. But reaching it meant going through the Empire's most guarded region, where even light seemed to vanish. No one spoke for a long moment. Then the fleet admiral leaned forward and said softly, "Then that's where we go." Across the galaxy, engines flared to life. The humans were moving again, toward the unknown, toward danger, toward the heart of the Empire. The galaxy watched in silence as they vanished into the dark, driven by something no empire could ever understand. The war was no longer just about survival. It was about proving that humanity's fire could never be captured. The human fleet moved in total silence as it crossed into the forbidden zone near the galactic core. The stars grew fewer, swallowed by clouds of ion storms and magnetic fields that twisted sensors and bent light. It was a place no one entered willingly. Yet the fleet pressed forward, guided by fragments of data sent from the Imperial scientist who risked everything. Every pilot knew the odds. No reinforcements would come. No one would even know if they vanished here. Still, they went. Humanity had always stepped into the dark when hope demanded it. As they neared the coordinates, strange readings began to appear on their scanners. The space ahead wasn't empty. It was surrounded by a vast energy field, ancient and pulsing like a heartbeat. It wasn't imperial in design. It was older. The fleet slowed, and an uneasy quiet filled the bridge. Then, through the mist, the hidden planet came into view. A massive sphere wrapped in metallic veins, glowing faintly with light that seemed almost alive. The scientists' coordinates had led them here, but this world was no laboratory. It was something far more dangerous. Inside the command ship, officers analyzed fragments of intercepted Imperial transmissions. That's when they found it. The Empire had not built the energy field. They had discovered it centuries ago and had been studying it ever since. The captured children weren't just test subjects. They were being used to activate something buried beneath the planet's surface. The Empire wasn't trying to destroy humanity. They were trying to harness it. A sense of dread filled the room. The Empire had realized that human defiance, that unyielding will to survive, wasn't a flaw. It was power. The kind that could awaken ancient machines left behind by civilizations long gone. If they succeeded, they could control that energy, and no force in the galaxy could stand against them. Humanity's greatest strength had become a weapon waiting to be turned on itself. Meanwhile, deep beneath the planet's surface, the stolen children were no longer in cells. They were connected to machines that hummed with low, rhythmic energy. The young scientist who had been secretly helping them watched from behind the glass, heart pounding. The project was entering its final stage, and once it began, nothing could stop it. The scientist sent one last encrypted signal into the void, not knowing if it would ever reach its destination. "They're awakening it. You must hurry." Back in orbit, the human fleet received the message. The transmission was fragmented, barely readable, but the meaning was clear. They were running out of time. Commanders ordered all ships into formation. Every pilot, engineer, and soldier knew this was it. If they failed now, the Empire wouldn't just win, it would reshape the galaxy itself. As they prepared for the final jump toward the planet, long-range sensors picked up a new signal. Hundreds of Imperial ships were emerging from hyperspace, forming a blockade between humanity and the world below. The largest of them, the Imperial dreadnought Oathkeeper, carried weapons powerful enough to erase an entire moon. The Empire wasn't defending the planet. They were protecting whatever was waking beneath it. For a moment, the humans hesitated, staring at the glowing planet beyond the wall of steel and fire. Then the Admiral gave the order that would echo through history. "We go through." Engines roared, shields flared, and the fleet surged forward into the storm. Somewhere deep inside that ancient world, something began to stir, something that wasn't Imperial and wasn't human either. And as the first shots of the battle were fired, the galaxy held its breath, sensing that everything was about to change. The battle erupted like a storm of light and fury. Human ships dove through enemy lines, weaving between beams of plasma and bursts of fire that tore the darkness apart. The void near the ancient planet became a sea of burning wreckage. The Oathkeeper loomed in the distance, its massive cannons glowing as it charged for another devastating strike. Every explosion shook the command deck of the lead human ship, but still, they pushed forward. They had no retreat, no fallback plan, only the desperate need to reach the surface before it was too late. Down on the planet, deep inside the ancient structure, the children's voices echoed faintly through the halls. Their eyes glowed faintly with the same strange light that pulsed through the metal veins of the planet. The Empire's machines had done something no one expected. They had linked the children's consciousness to the heart of the structure. The scientist, trembling as alarms blared, realized what was happening. The planet wasn't just a weapon. It was a living construct, a relic built to preserve life from a forgotten age. And now, through the children, it was awakening. Above, human Marines broke through the outer defenses and landed near the central complex. They fought their way through waves of Imperial drones, guided by the scientist's final beacon. The air was thick with smoke and the hum of ancient power. Every corridor pulsed like a heartbeat. Every step forward was a fight against both the Empire's soldiers and the planet itself. The lead team finally reached the core chamber, where the children were suspended in fields of light, their minds merged with the ancient system. The scientist appeared on a flickering screen, voice breaking. "If you disconnect them now, the energy will collapse and destroy everything. But if you let the process finish, the Empire will gain control of it all." It was an impossible choice: save the children or save the galaxy. Then, something unexpected happened. One of the children opened their eyes. They spoke, their voice calm, yet layered with a tone not entirely human. "You don't have to choose. We can stop them." Before anyone could react, the light around them surged, filling the entire chamber. The ancient construct responded, not to the Empire's command, but to the children's will. The power pulsed outward in waves of pure energy, shutting down the Imperial fleet's weapons and tearing through their control systems. In orbit, the Oathkeeper began to disintegrate as its reactors failed, its massive form breaking apart under the surge. The human ships pulled back, shields barely holding as the energy engulfed the battlefield. When the light faded, silence fell. The Imperial fleet was gone. The planet, once glowing, now drifted quietly in the void. Then, in the stillness, scanners picked up movement. The children were alive, every one of them. But their eyes carried the faint shimmer of the planet's light. The scientist's final message came through the comms. "They've become something new. They saved us, but they're not entirely human anymore." The fleet recovered them, hearts heavy with both victory and uncertainty. Humanity had won. But as they left the now dead planet behind, one final transmission flickered through the static. A voice, soft, familiar, and echoing with strange resonance, whispered, "We're still here. We'll watch over you." And somewhere deep in the darkness, the ancient world stirred once more, as if remembering what it had seen, a fire that could never be extinguished. The aftermath of the battle stretched across the stars like a quiet echo. Where once there had been chaos and fire, now there was stillness. The human fleet drifted through the wreckage of the Imperial Armada, their ships battered but standing. Every survivor felt the same heavy silence, a mixture of relief and disbelief. They had won a war that should have been impossible, but no one cheered. Victory had come with questions no one knew how to answer. The rescued children were brought aboard the medical ships first. They looked like the same children who had been taken months ago, but something in their eyes had changed. When they spoke, their voices carried a calm that didn't belong to any child. They remembered everything, the fear, the pain, the light, and yet they were no longer afraid. Scientists and officers tried to understand what had happened to them, but the answers were beyond technology. The children had become something new, a bridge between humanity and the ancient intelligence that had once slept beneath the planet's surface. Back on Terra Prime, news of the victory spread faster than light. Across the colonies, people wept as they saw the first images of the children stepping off the ships. The war had cost countless lives, but humanity had proven something powerful, that no empire, no matter how vast, could crush their spirit. For the first time in generations, the galaxy saw humans not as a weak frontier species, but as survivors who could rise from ruin and still fight for what mattered most. The Galactic Empire was silent. Its fleets, crippled by the energy surge, retreated from human space. Rumors whispered that their emperor had vanished during the final battle, his flagship lost in the storm. Some said the empire would rebuild. Others believed it had finally learned to fear the fire it had tried to control. But humanity didn't seek revenge. They had seen enough destruction. They turned their strength toward rebuilding, their homes, their alliances, and their sense of unity. Among the children, one by one, faint signs of the planet's influence began to fade. They started to dream again, laugh again, as if the light within them was dimming. But before it did, one of them said something that stayed with everyone who heard it. "The stars remember," the child whispered. "They know what you did for us." No one could explain it, yet it brought a quiet peace to those who had fought so hard. Years later, when the scars of war began to heal, explorers returned to the ancient world near the galactic core. The planet was dark and lifeless, its surface cracked but calm, and yet, when their ships passed close enough, their sensors picked up faint energy pulses deep underground, steady, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Humanity didn't disturb it again. They left it as a reminder of what they had endured and what they had become. Across the stars, new treaties were formed, new alliances born, and even some species that had once ignored humans began to listen when they spoke. The galaxy had changed forever, and somewhere out in that endless dark, when the stars flickered just right, some said you could still hear a faint whisper carried on the cosmic winds, a voice both human and something more. It wasn't a warning or a threat, it was a promise. The fire of humanity still burns.